Welcome to Anime Classics Everyone Should See 80's edition.
Yeah!
I love this response. It's actually a pretty sweet room. We've never been to Gainesville before. This is our first time in Gainesville ever. We're Propeller Anime. We're actually a club out of Orlando, Florida. We do stuff at Maycon, AFO, Anime Weekend Atlanta, all that stuff. I don't know if you guys have been there, but that's usually where we roll. But SwampCon invited us out, and we're like, sweet, let's do it. So we're pretty impressed so far. It's a big turnout today. I'm really glad that Gainesville has a sweet anime community. You can find us on all sorts of places, Propeller Anime. We got Facebook, Twitter, and if you're a Google employee, we got that going on for you guys as well. Welcome, come in, have a seat wherever you like. With me, I'm Kent Ward. I run Propeller Anime. That's Jean-Louis Strapwin, and that is Seamus Oddish, who is also from Channel Zero. If you've been to that website, it's pretty cool. Now, we're going to cover anime from the greatest decade in human history. Now, the 80s were an essential era. You had Ronald Reagan pretty much set the tone for what America was going to be like. Depending on which version of the story you want to go with, whether he was an incompetent president who gave away secrets and weapons to our enemies that would use them against us later, or the other side of the coin where he was the greatest president of all time. What is the truth, though, is that he is a very manly man. And there's a lot of imagery depicting him doing very manly things like riding horses, chopping wood, exercising, working out, all that stuff. So that set a really good tone for what America was going to be like. And that influenced Hollywood as well. So there are a lot of testosterone-pumped action movies featuring guys like Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme. The list goes on and on and on, doing highly violent movies, very well-fit, very muscular, because at this point in time, America was all about working out. There's a little bit of that returning these days. Also, technology started to really advance in the 80s, and this would have a huge impact on anime as well. Well, getting back to action movies before I move on to technology, action movies and cinema in Hollywood is starting to influence like how stories are being told in Japan. A lot of the most well-known anime directors would in fact watch movies from Hollywood and get inspiration from that, and you'll start seeing influence of that in some of the anime that we'll be talking about today. Now, moving on to technology, computers were starting to become more active in the household. Video games were like something that you could play in your home and not just in the arcade. Anyone here remember what an arcade is? A few people. Oh, a lot of people. All right, awesome. Well,
it's that thing in Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, here's a better question. How many people here have actually been to a real working arcade?
Oh, yeah,
where you
arcade.
There is one in town still.
We're all good people.
Maybe there's hope for humanity afterwards.
They got a good arcade scene here in Gainesville to die in Orlando years ago. Do they have arcades here?
Yeah, Gainesville that has an arcade.
It's got a Captain Marvel versus Capcom era.
Oh, that's right on. That is sweet. Alright, well, moving right along so we get everything in. The idea was technology was advancing, and you would start seeing that in both movies, animation, everything. You would see more detailed robots, you would see more detailed mech, and technology becoming a more prevalent part of the stories that were being told. Factoring into that, the rise of sophisticated sci-fi, well, that began in the late 70s with stuff like Alien, but that started to roll over more in the 80s with things like Blade Runner, Terminator, the sequel to Aliens, Total Recall, so on and so forth. It wasn't just, hey, here's like Star Wars, which is more of a Western than a sci-fi story. It's more like, hey, this is like, we're going to have like the advancement of technology be a huge theme in our movies, and a lot of anime would have that as well, even though anime was already going through changes like that as well. With in the 70s, there was a series called Space Battleship Yamato that was very intellectual, and that would be like the inspiration for things like Gundam, which would make way for a lot of other things. Some of those we'll probably talk about today. And last but not least that I want to focus on is martial arts. Even though that was starting to be introduced into cinema in a big way in the 70s, became a really huge thing in the 80s. So you would start seeing more martial arts fights in movies, and therefore you would see that a lot in anime as well.
I'm going to talk real fast about theming in movies as well. In the 80s, it was coming off of the whole exploitation biz from the 60s and 70s, so a lot of people were getting, trying to tap into that market. So in the 80s, you also saw a lot more grimier films being produced. Things like Blade Runner, even though it's in the future, it's not a very pretty future. So a lot of dystopian societies, things like 1984, things like that, were starting to become a real world, concern. It's sci-fi, so that's why a lot of those films suddenly became a big deal.
Another thing that isn't really featured on this slide is a big part of the 80s was the age of excess. People became very materialistic, wanted to spend money on things. Fashion was a huge deal. People wanted fancy cars, phones, everything they could get their hands on. That started becoming a thing with things like MTV. You would see people touting their fancy things in movies, and by the end of the 80s, people started getting sick and tired of that, which gave way to like the grunge era and the shift in culture by the time the 90s had started. So you'll see some things that, like in both movies and in anime, that took huge risks and just did whatever they want because they had huge budgets to just blow on making entertainment. So why 80s anime? Because it's the highest peak of modern Japan economy. There's a lot of high quality animation and art, so you'll see some things that, like, still to this day are like the best animated stuff from Japan. Not all of it, but there's some really good stuff that is still like among the best of Japanese animation. Also, more positive and imaginative outlook on future technology. We pretty much, I don't know, I feel like with a lot of the sci-fi stuff of today, it's like because we don't have hoverboards or spaceships or time machines in 2013, it's like, well, whatever. We'll just have these generic sci-fi stories about robots invading the Earth or whatever, you know. So, I don't know, like, there's not much...
Well, it's a more positive outlook on technology and how we can use it. You have a lot of shows that said, in the 1990s, we'll all have giant robots that do all of our work for us. And we get that point, all of a sudden, you know, the economy didn't come up at all for us to make those types of those leaps. But again, you have a lot of man versus machine coming into play and a lot of that technology. What's it going to do to us in the future? Is it going to take over completely?
All right, moving on. So good Japanese accounting, like we said, more was taken. So there's a lot of stuff that were only made in the 80s that you would not see made at any other time in Japanese anime history. So these are pretty much movies that you're only going to see this one-of-a-kind stuff from this period. You'll not see anything like it today. And like I said before, more testosterone.
Much more.
Well, I know the guys are down on that, and maybe some of the ladies are as well, but it's something I'm a big fan of. I'm a huge fan of like the maname, as some people have coined the term for highly masculine anime featuring a lot of ass kicking.
Your term.
Oh, kind of. But it's like, it's
Some
red.
people.
Some people.
Yes. And,
No, I thought you came up with this.
I don't know, it's just a word. It works. Moving on. It's also the beginning of the first anime boom in America with stuff like Robotech being brought over. Voltron. I think Ranma 1/2 was being brought over in the late 80s in college anime clubs, or so I've read. So I think this is a point in time where anime was starting to get really popular in America on a huge level before things like Konami and the internet came into play. Yeah, you know. And most importantly, many iconic movies and series are still that we're going to talk about are still relevant today. So how this is going to work? We're going to showcase. It's actually 9. We actually decided to cut something for time. Must have come out in Japan from 1980 to 1989. Stands out today as something that is must-see. Represents the spirit of the 80s. So we have assembled 9 things that represent. This is what anime was like in the 80s. And this is not a top 9 list. So we're not going in order. And if there's things that we left off this list, it's not because it sucks or we don't think it's among the best. It's just we wanted to showcase anime that represents the 80s very well. So starting right off, we're going to go with the Halloween. Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, I think is pretty much an anime essential. We wanted to include this as the token Miyazaki movie from the 80s, so there's some other good stuff as well. This is actually based off a manga that he did, and even though many people think this is a Studio Ghibli movie, Studio Ghibli did not exist yet. There's a studio called Topcraft, and a lot of those guys want to go on and form Studio Ghibli after this movie, and they held the rights to the series. But the idea is these creatures known as, what are they, Omu?
Oh, they all move, yeah.
Yeah, they pretty much have ravaged the earth, leaving the resources limited for like everyday people. So it's kind of like an apocalyptic situation, which is going to be a prevalent theme in a lot of things we talk about today. And humans such as Princess Nausicaa are pretty much foraging the best they can to make ends meet so they can survive. Though with the power of the Omu, some humans have discovered that by harvesting Omus, killing them and using what they possess as resources, they can actually start advancing their civilization. So this sort of thing makes the Omu mad. So Princess Nausicaa actually has to work hard to prevent a war where the Earth gets ravaged again by these Omu. So this actually begins the theme of Miyazaki movies about sentiments of anti-war, appreciating nature, strong feminine characters, stuff like that. And we'll just play a video clip and talk for a little bit while it's playing. Right. Southern Sun. Definitely not. So we'll just Alt-Tab. ruin the
Spoilers.
spoilers. I know. Where's my
convention experience?
That's not it. Where? Down? Oh.
They're going to show us a video of this in the North Star.
Of course. I guess that's 90%
Alright, now we got some fun.
The basic concept is also that the overall is doing something to the world where most of the planet is uninhabitable by humans, so space is very limited for people to live in. That's why you have these warring kingdoms who are vying for control of the resources, and Nausicaa actually comes from a country that's kind of like settled between two nations, two much larger nations, and they've come to be more at peace with nature. Like they know exactly how to gauge, like if Omu are going to be, rampaging through a certain area, they know, well, we need to go over here. Whereas the other two nations are like, oh, the Omu are coming, let's just shoot cannons at them and hope they go away. So they're trying to live in harmony and peace, and Nausicaa represents that. But then, of course, something happens where one of the craft from one of the neighboring nations crashes after being attacked, and suddenly her whole country is thrown into this conflict. And in the background, you have that ever-present threat of the Omu raging and start to just destroy everything because of this larger conflict at hand. I wonder if they showed any God Warrior in here.
Oh, that thing was amazing.
Not in this show. That's like a thing that comes at the end. It's a very phenomenal scene. Did you know Hideaki Anno did the animation for that?
What's funny is that there's these things called God Warriors, which are one of the devices used by people in the past to wage war against one another. And what's really funny is that there's a sequence in the movie where a God Warrior comes back, and that whole sequence was animated by Hideaki Anno. If you look at the God Warrior in comparison to something else Anno would be responsible for later on, just Evangelion, there's a lot of similarities in design. So even 10 years later, when Anno did Evangelion, this movie still held on with it.
Now this movie was actually brought over by Disney, well at least the current version. It was actually called Warriors of the Wind at some point.
How many of you watched that?
But like,
I saw the commercials for it. I never got out to see it because
but you can actually find this still. Like, wow. So Nausicaa is like available to get on Blu-ray. It actually looks really nice on Blu-ray, so if you want to get it that way, and it's also on DVD as well from Disney Video. So we're going to move on to our next thing. And this one has a special place in my heart. Someone already knows.
It's not that hard to guess where you're going with this guy.
Well, I don't know how many people know me. Alright, so Fist of the North Star, life-changing series right here.
You're already dead.
Alright, so there's a lot of fans in this here. That's very good to hear. That makes me, you guys rock. You're a good community here. So I don't know what's up with Gator. Is Gator Anime the people that like run the anime stuff here? Those people apparently are doing their job, so right on. So this is actually gonna be the only long-running series we cover in our not best stuff, but like anime 80s deal. So this is kind of like a hybrid. Anyone familiar with a guy named Bruce Lee? Alright, who is familiar with Mad Max? Alright, so the idea, Mad Max is this crazy post-apocalyptic movie that stars Mel Gibson and his family's murdered. He's got to fight all these thugs and bandits that have like clotted leather and spikes, and they have mullets and mohawks and stuff like that. And the idea, and Fist of the North Star is a similar idea. So the basic premise is that the world has gone through nuclear apocalypse, like some country or whatever just could not keep their nukes in check, and that started a full chain of war where the entire planet was devastated. So they have no weapons. Their land is pretty much unfertile, and there's no law in the land. So pretty much, if you're the strongest, then you get the rule. And this doesn't really help weak people that are just trying to get by. But from the desert or from the earth comes this man named Kenshiro, who trained in a deadly martial arts technique called Hokuto Shinken. And the idea is if he presses pressure points, he emits energy into an opponent's body that can explode them. Very awesome. So it's filled with martial arts, lots of testosterone. This is the manliest anime ever, period. I'm gonna play a clip. Alright, we're not going to play all these, by the way, just like the first few. Just to demonstrate how effective Hokuto Shinken is. Alright, so all this is playing, I'll explain some more. For those who have not seen this, I'll explain more of the premise. So, the world's in post-apocalypse, the strongest warriors in the world that use martial arts of, similar to Kenshiro's, whether it's like cutting people with their hands or exploding them, they're pretty much using their power to abuse the people. They get their little groups together, like their little armies that keep everyone in check. So everyone's living in fear, and one by one, Kenshiro is pretty much on a mission to destroy them all. But at the same time, he's also trying to find his lost fiancée, Yuria, who was kidnapped by his former best friend, Shin, who has gone mad with power and ambition. So Kenshiro has to be tasked with not only fighting people that were once his best friends to the death, but at some point, he also has to face his family members as well. Like people that he grew up with that also trained Hokuto Shinken, he has to kill as well because there can only be one successor to the style. So Kenshiro has to deal with the fact that he's the master and he's a brother to these guys, but he also has to enforce the law of Hokuto Shinken. At the same time, he also has to take on the burden of protecting the people around him so that there's some semblance of order or real order and peace in this crazy world.
Sometimes it involves a arm wrestling match with table saws.
For example, I'm talking about part 2. Let's not talk about part 2.
Someone said, let's not talk about part 2. Like, there's 2 Fist of North Star series. There's the first one that's 109 episodes, and the second one makes up for the remaining 151 episodes. The story's not as strong, but I still think it's pretty awesome to watch. The first villain or so that Kenshiro fights is a guy named Falco that reminds me of Ivan Drago from Rocky IV. And you can see Kenshiro in certain designs, he has this very curly hair. So I think of like when they fight, it's like Rocky Balboa versus Ivan Drago using high-powered martial arts. So I think that aspect of Fist of North Star 2 is pretty good, but the meat and potatoes is in the first series. And once Rao was introduced as like the main villain of the whole thing, that's when things really start to pick up. Alright, so you can actually watch all of this for free on sites like Crunchyroll and Hulu, so there is no excuse to miss out on this. And if you want to own it physically, Discotech Media has the whole series released. And yeah, he is so strong that he can pick up giant boulders, walk around with them, just toss them. So this is the last part we'll show, and then we'll move on to the next series.
No race weakness. Again, in the early 90s, at a Miami Beach Art Theater, they showed the movie. Was the movie just a compilation of some of the episodes?
Yeah, there is an actual Fist of North Star movie directed by Toyo Yoshida as well. It's kind of like a reversioning of the first 47 episodes, but it's done with all new animation, and some of the plot elements or some parts of the story actually changed to fit a movie format. Because it's covering so much ground in 2 hours, it's kind of like you're rushing from battle to battle.
There's also a live-action Fist of North Star movie. I'll watch that.
Starring downtown Judy Brown. And the guy from Song.
The happiest part of the first, what was it? Not Untouchables, the Expendables. Best part of the Expendables movie is when that guy died. That actor in the first one, when Jason Statham and Jet Li just
kick his head off.
Yeah, kick his
literally.
Head off.
No, what about the Knife King stabbing in the second one with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
That was awesome. But let's move on to our next anime. I do like those movies, but we need to focus here. So Project A-ko, this is actually the first thing I watched that I knew was anime. Like some buddy of mine when I was 13 or whatever, put a VHS tape just to date myself into his VCR and started playing it, and we were like, what the hell is this thing? Like, it was Japanimation, son. So, and like within the first 5 minutes, this girl named A-ko takes off her top, revealing her breasts. We're like, you can do that in cartoons?
She was getting dressed.
another life-changing anime, Project Eiko. You want to talk about this, Shane? Actually, we need to get Jay on this too.
Okay, well, basic premise behind Project Eiko is takes place in Japan, maybe. The spaceship crashed years ago, and the city had to be rebuilt. The city had to be rebuilt around the spaceship. So technology kind of advanced as they were taking parts of the spaceship apart and building everything else. The story rolls around Eiko, who is a high school student at this high school in the city, and she has this best friend named Seiko. Seiko is a person who is really irritating. She's a blonde chick, right? Being dragged along. But Seiko and Eiko are best friends, and at the very beginning of the anime, you realize that there's something really weird about Eiko because when she goes to school, runs to school, she runs at like 70, 80 miles an hour, smashing through everything because she's late. But Biko, who is the girl with the weird battle armor up there, it's
Mark usually covers yourself.
There's missile pods on that. She gets jealous of Eiko and Seiko being such best friends because she used to be best friends with Seiko. So she decides to come up with a plot to fight Eiko using different mechanized robots that she invents to battle Eiko, who obviously is a superhuman. Like this. Well, the mechs are very good at this.
There's a lot of things going on. There are a lot of things going on in Eiko. It's a big time parody anime. There's like a bunch of different things that are parodied in Eiko. We're actually going to show them that's relevant to what we just watched. Why not? So that's that 80's excess we were talking about. Like just over-the-top brute strength being displayed in anime.
She can't believe that this 15-year-old girl just destroyed all of her robots that she spent all night making.
Yeah.
Literally, all night.
She was dedicated to taking it down.
But they were also
Yeah, they actually do parody Fist of the North Star in this. So you got this big butch chick that looks like Kenshiro, who we just introduced.
And when she
And that's Seiko. Yes, they are playing rock, paper, scissors.
And yeah, and the thing is, Biko's so dumb that she thinks everything's a game.
Seiko.
Seiko? Okay, I always thought her name was Biko.
Biko's the genius.
Okay.
Biko's a genius.
Alright then. Now her voice gets very deep. So yeah, this thing's pretty much an over-top collection of all the wacky 80's anime piled into one movie.
This is the first time I realized the Prince of the North Star reference.
I'll be honest.
The thing is, I saw this many, many years before I saw Fist and North Star, so when I saw Fist, I'm like, oh my god, it's Project Eiko.
Even in the dub, they keep that joke. See, there's another plot line built into this. It's not just all about Eiko and Seiko. There's also a race of aliens that want to kidnap Seiko because they think that Seiko is their princess and that they need to reclaim her. All the aliens are masculine females. They confuse Seiko for their princess, but then there's another character like that walking around. Nobody in Project Eiko is really all that smart. They're just kind of looking at it.
Alright, this one. Royal Space Force Twinkle on Enemy. So anyone of your fans of like things like Kenny and Stalking with Garfield, Gorilla Gone, Evangelion. Alright, so this is
way better than it.
Well, yeah, that is true. This is still the best Gainax one, but it's also the very, very, very first thing that Gainax ever produced. So the idea of these guys who are animation students working at various companies or also working out of college got together to put together a little short called Daikon pretty much put together the intro animation for Daikon 4. Daikon 4 was a sci-fi comic book convention in Japan.
It's the Japanese National Science Fiction Convention.
Right, so the idea is, thank you, Juan. The idea is they put together this animation piece that was actually very impressive for such a little budget and for guys who are mostly in college. That Bandai Entertainment, getting back into that 80s excess, just threw a bunch of money at them to make a full feature-length film, and what they came up with was Wings of Oniami. So the idea is, this is a movie about traveling to space in a fictional world that's totally independent of what we do. They are trying to get into space. This country has a space program. No one's successfully made it into space. Every time they send someone, they die, the spaceship explodes, or they freak out, whatever. And they're like, our guys suck, what's up with these guys? And then there's this one dude whose name is Shirotsu, right? Shirotsu Ladat. And the idea is he's a total goon, totally incompetent, lazy, shows up late to everything, is always sleeping in class or training sessions. But one day he meets a lady, I forget her name, but she's basically that universe's version of a Jehovah's Witness. She's preaching a lot of religion. Like, she's in the middle of the street in like some downtown area trying to get people to learn about her religious lord, her god, right? And so Shirotsu, man, that name's so hard to pronounce.
Just call him Shiro.
Shiro, alright, we'll go with Shiro, thank you. So the idea is he bumps into her, he thinks she's cute, she's like, why don't you come over to my place, we'll talk about this. So he goes over, open the store, right? Because he's like totally a dude in college. He's like, I'll go to this chick's house and get some. That totally doesn't happen because she is hardcore religious, right? Well, they have this discussion about what he does going into space. So the idea is, she's like, that's so awesome that you want to go to space. That's like what she thinks, right? That's not really, he doesn't really care. But she's telling how awesome it is that he's going to space because that hasn't been tainted. The world is so terrible, people are so immoral, but like in space, it's pure. Only God's been to space, stuff like that. So Shiro gets this idea that, hey, I'll go to space and I'll totally impress her. So he gets really serious about it. So like during one of these lectures, their teacher like is ranting about how no one wants to like go into space. So this is where he's like asking for volunteers. Oh, I'm gonna be so angry.
You're opening a media player, you just might as well.
Ladat, sir, I volunteer.
What the hell are you saying?
Shirotsu.
See?
Shirotsu Ladat, sir.
Yes, Ladat. And is there anyone else? Very well then. All other volunteers, fill out the forms. That's all.
This was supposed to be happening. One of their friends actually just died. And they had a funeral for him. And pretty much they just buried him. And they were like, wow, that was a waste. That guy just died for no reason at all. So nobody has any confidence in the program at all. It's a death sentence.
Mati, both you and I have a purpose. We are the Chozo.
So you see that Shiro starts taking this training very seriously, and their training is similar to ours in some ways, but not really. There's not a high amount of technology in this. But while this is all going on, they build the nation actually starts building Shiro as a hero and a star. So he becomes a national celebrity and garners a lot of attention, both good and bad. But this country also has a very bad economy, so a lot of people see the space program as a waste of money that can be used to help people who are unemployed. Something that's kind of relevant to today with how things are going with our economy. So like there's assassination attempts being put on Shiro, and also the government starts using their space program as a front to start a war with another country, which plays into towards the end of the movie. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
The feeling for it, a lot of the space race feels very similar to in a lot of history classes for the Cold War when Russia versus America in terms of who can get to space first. So a lot of it, you do have that kind of tension building in the background as well.
Yeah, just real quick, I saw this at the World Scientific Convention in 1988, and the ending, everybody cheered. They actually got a big clap.
It's a very great movie. It does move at a very, by modern day standards, it does move at a very slow pace, but I do recommend it watching it at least once. Put away your phones, put away your computers when you watch it. Give it your full attention because it is very good.
The end has a punch to it, so yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think it's a movie that has a slow build, but the payoff at the end is tremendous. So moving right along. We have Yoshiaki Kawajiri representing the 80s. You might know this guy is the guy that created Ninja Scroll or Vampire D Bloodlust. And this is Wicked City. What's ironic about this, Yoshiaki Kawajiri has a thing with working for Hideki Kyuuchi, who's also the writer for Wicked City, Demon City Shinjuku, and also Vampire D. So he does a lot of anime based off those novels. But this is like one of his first, well, he had a lot of things going in the 80s, such as Lensman, but this one is crazy, over the top, horrific, grotesque, you name it.
To me, there's like the epitome of what represents Kawajiri's kind of stuff.
I like this series. What are you talking about?
No, this is awesome. Like
we would have put it in this panel if we didn't think it was great. So there's like things featured, like there's one part where the agent's making love to a woman, like they just met, and the woman turns out to be like this crazy spider demon with like teeth where her vagina is. So she almost takes a bite out of his junk while they're having sex. And then it gets in the full fight mode while he's naked. So I don't really remember what the plot of this movie is. Just all the crazy over the top things that happen.
Basic plot beyond all of the spider demons is you have the human role in this world of spirits, and world of spirits, they want to have kind of a conflict with the people of the world. And the whole idea is that there's this organization that the maker works for. It's kind of like the Men in Black, but he's a liaison between the spirit world and the real world. And there's a new treaty being written up by both sides so that they can have another 100 years of peace. Well, that politician, that guy who's coming to decide the treaty of the spirit world, is now being targeted by demons that want to have a war. So he has to work together with another agent who is herself a spirit of the demon world, and work together to stop this assassination from happening so the world won't evolve into like hell on earth. So it's like very gratuitous, very graphic, very awesome.
It's very, very, very graphic. Do not watch that. Alright, so I was thinking where this, I have the shirt of this, yes. Alright, so what does Wicked City mean to you?
I told you, it's just a very special movie. It was one of the first movies I watched. And first, it's a great movie. I mean, there's a scene. Oh my God,
There was also a movie, a live-action movie based off of this. Don't watch that. Very weird. Weirder than that was.
Wicked City is extremely hard to find now. The rights to it are owned by Urban Vision, who I found out last night actually is still in business. I thought they went under. So I was hoping that someday maybe Discotheque Media or someone responsible will pick it up and put it back out so people can actually own it and see it for the first time or watch it again. It's a crazy over-the-top movie. It's definitely like one of those, like if you want to watch something good around Halloween, this is like right on the list.
definitely.
Alright. There's a lot of people that have seen this movie. I'm very impressed. That's good. So we talked about Hayao Miyazaki earlier, and we feel like Isao Takahata never gets any love or mention. Not even close to like he's very big deal in Japan, but like Hayao Miyazaki gets all the fame here in America. I don't think people even know this is a Ghibli movie, but like this was a very big deal back in the 80s. Actually, it was so rough that they had to pair this up with My Neighbor Totoro at the same time as a double feature. So like after they watched this, they'd watch Totoro and feel better again.
I wish I had that.
So this is a World War II drama. Pretty much these two kids are experiencing the last days of World War II in Japan. America's pretty much kicking Japan's ass. But, you know, the Japanese government's leading the Japanese people to believe that everything's okay, that they'll be safe, that they'll overcome the evil American devils, what have you. And then as the days go on, they start to realize that's not true. The rations start shrinking, the bombings get more intense. People are dying, people are getting maggots all up in them, and, you know, there's a lot of suffering disease that's starting to spread, so people are starting to realize that the Japanese government might be full of crap.
fans, a lot of people I've spoken to about this film sometimes think that this film is kind of a war shame against Americans. This movie was not made for American release. This movie was made for the Japanese audience in mind completely.
But it's still dark.
It's a dark film, but you have to understand, in the 80s, Japanese youth were becoming rebellious. They didn't have any respect for their adults or their superiors. Takahata was actually asked to come in and apply his touch to this film in order to make children realize what's at stake if they don't get their lives straightened out. Because the children in this, the brother, he actually, at one point, is like, you know what? I don't need to live under your roof. I don't need to live under your house. And he's living with an aunt who's very cruel, kind of selfish, but at least they're living. And if you know the end of the story, it's his mistakes that kind of lead them down that dark path. At the end of the film, there's a moment where the brother turns and looks right at the screen, breaking the fourth wall. And it's like, and it's after they have this great sequence of looking out over the prosperity of the potential future. And it's like, you think that this is all there is? No. All of this is like the fireflies. They could go away in an instant. You need to take responsibility and you need to take care of yourselves. So it's kind of how the message goes, at least as far as I interpret it.
Picking up on the symbols, Shane, well done.
I've heard that the fireflies were a metaphor for radioactivity.
No. In this film, they're actually touching on Hiroshima or Nagasaki at all. It's all the actual firebombing that America was actually doing in both Japan and the firebombs were just firebombs. That was actually bombs that they had that were conventional weapons they were using in Europe and in Japan.
We use it more in Japan because there's stuff made out
of wood. So, and in paper. So it's one of those things where it's like they had weapons of destruction. At the very beginning of the film, there's actually a firebomb. That's not nuclear devastation. That is actually just conventional weapons.
That's Barefoot Jan.
Basically.
Barefoot Gen has. If you want to watch something about nuclear holocaust in Japan, Barefoot Gen. But
if you want to watch the aftermath, watch this.
Let's say more that has not happened yet. My theory on Fist of the North Star is the reason that war happens, and part of me, ladies, I think it's because a woman becomes president. That's the only way that can happen. That's the only way there will be a nuclear apocalypse. But as far as Game of the Fireflies goes, you can actually get this movie on Blu-ray and DVD courtesy of Sentai Filmworks. The transfer is very excellent, and you should definitely check it out if you have not already. It's a very powerful movie. It does have some very sad parts, and does, like I said, it's a very slow pace movie. A lot of movies in the 80s were very slow paced, but they build up to a tremendous climax. Alright, so this one. So people wanted us to talk about this idea. I left the panel earlier. We wanted to save it for this. And this is not only the movie, but also the OVA series. Because the OVA series introduces the characters. And I feel like if you watch the movie first, I mean, it's still a cool movie, but you get to miss a lot of what makes the characters who they are because they're established in the original series. So the movie's a big deal because it's actually the first time Production IG, who's a big-time studio, makes a movie, and it's also one of the first big works of Mamoru Oshii that puts them on the map. So we've got this world where robots are used to help people.
It takes place in the year 1999.
I remember that.
There's a guy there with a question. What's up?
Just to clarify, you say for the full experience, watch the OVAs first?
If you can find the OVAs, which is called like the early days or whatever, or the early years.
Central Park Media, I believe, did release the OVAs. I don't know if it's still in print, but it's a 2-disc box set. You can buy it. It's like 7 episodes. It's a lot of fun.
I think you can watch both the OVA or the TV series personally. Like I started with the TV series and it kind of introduces some.
The thing is, though, the movie doesn't really do anything to establish the characters because they're already introduced elsewhere. So they, I guess when they make it, they kind of expect you. And there's also some parts of the movies that like nod from things that were established in the TV series, or like little story points little details that were like started in the TV series that have the payoff in the movie. But we'll talk. That we're not going to really talk about. You have to pretty much watch the OVA in the movie, and then you'll see for yourself. But the idea is this guy. The movie starts out with this dude jumping off of a bridge. This guy, what's his name? Well, he goes by the name Jehovah, right?
Ihoba.
Ihoba, yeah.
Ichihoba, yeah.
Ichihoba. And the idea is this guy, he's the creator of the system that controls the Patlabors, right? Or he's a big engineer involved with that.
Yeah, the basic premise is this guy creates this new operating system for all the robots, and as with all operating systems, it starts going haywire. At some point, some people in the government feel that the virus that is under the bugs is actually a kind of conspiracy deal, so they call in the Special Vehicle Unit 2, which is the Patlabor unit. Pretty much what they're designed to do is go into a situation where terrorists or criminals are using labors, which are the giant robots, to create crime. And so they need to have robots to go fight these other robots. And that's what they do. Special Vehicle Unit 2, however, is kind of the... anybody here seen Police Academy, or am I dating myself? Okay, this is Police Academy, the anime. Special Vehicle Unit 2 is a bunch of misfits. They are the worst possible candidates to put into a robot suit, but they get the job done with a little collateral damage here and there.
Well, the OVA is more like the Police Academy. The movie itself is like much more serious tone.
The movie is much more intense, a lot more serious.
But like the OVA...
Correct me if I'm wrong, is this written by the same guy who wrote Ghost in the Shell?
This is Mamoru Oshia, who directed Ghost in the Shell movie.
Matsumone Shiro had nothing to do with this.
Okay, I got confused.
I don't know if like there's a manga that's based off. I don't know if Oshii read it. I have to research that.
Oshii he directed Innocence, I know that for sure, and I think he did Standalone Complex.
Yeah, but those original stories were written by a guy named Matsumone Shiro. But anyhow, the OVA is kind of more of a Police Academy style show. These guys are trained, learning how to use robots. What's funny is like the police force doesn't bring in enough income from the government to actually own and operate stuff. So these guys got to do regular everyday jobs like farm and build stuff and be carpenters. You know, pretty much basically blue collar work in addition to being police officers.
But in the movie, when this guy invents this new system, the first unit, the Special Vehicle Unit 1, the people that they would normally send in for serious work, they're all in America being trained on this new system, so all they have to rely on are these rejects. And they have to deal with some very serious stuff in terms of there's labor's going crazy, there's a lot of property damage, there's military units that might suddenly go crazy, there's units in like nuclear power plants that might lose their minds and just blow up parts of the city. So there's a lot of pressure on these characters to figure out this mystery of why are these robots going crazy. And each of the actual characters have their own personality again, which come out in the OVA. But in the movie, it's a lot more. I guess it would be heady in a lot of ways. It's a lot more again intellectual. There's a lot of symbolism, a lot of crazy stuff. Like the guy Yehovah, he has this whole god complex that you find out about, and it's tied into his name. So
yeah. So the name is called Babel. That's the name of the place. Once they find out what's making the robots go crazy, and the source is Babel, it's pretty much a race against time to stop this. And ironically enough, going back to that symbolism and God complex stuff, it's actually a tsunami that can be the trigger point for all these robots going crazy. So they actually have to stop this before the tsunami hits.
Yeah, and the whole name of the project that the thing is built around is called the Babylon Project. So there's a lot of stuff thrown in there.
I'll turn this up a little. My favorite voice actor.
果たして東京は壊滅するのか。どうしたの？問題が起きた。恐ればなお増加中、ものすごい数です。おそらくあいつは俺たち、いや、この町に住む全ての人間を嘲笑いながら飛び降りたに違いない。
That's actually the name of the main character.
Anyways, you're right, yes. So anyways, you can actually get the movie Patlabor. There's actually a second one that came out in 1993 that's also tremendous. But they sell them, if you can find them still, they sell them these fantastic sets. That's not only the movie, but these two booklets. One is a storyboard booklet, and the other one is just pretty much a companion guide that covers all the behind-the-scenes details of Patlabor, the OVA, and also the movie, which includes a lot of interviews with a lot of the staff, including Oshii. You can actually find it for like as low as $15, because like I can't remember who put it out. I think it was Bandai, but
Bandai Visual.
they put it out for like $80 or whatever when it first came out, and this is like after the anime bubble burst, so I don't know what they were thinking. But like, if you go on the internet to places like Right Stuff or Amazon, you can get it really cheap, and it's a good set. So you can get
like a Criterion collection of of an anime. It really is just a great release of it.
I mean, if you watch the OVA, you watch the first movie, then move on to the second movie, which is like probably the best Mamoru Oshii movie period, then you pretty much have a lot of good anime under your belt. So moving right along.
Yes!
We can't do an 80s panel without talking about Akira. So this is pretty much a big deal. And actually the 25th anniversary of the movie is going to be this July, and the manga's just celebrated its 30th anniversary in December. So I consider this to be one of the, this is one of the hallmarks of anime in the West, like achieving famous success as a serious medium.
It's pretty much the one that needs no introduction whatsoever.
Ever.
Yeah.
Is there anyone, I'm not going to out anyone, I do not like outing people, we're not going to boo or hiss, but like, is there anyone who hasn't seen this movie yet? Alright, that's cool, that's fine. Funimation does have the rights to the movie, and they will be putting it out later this year, so make sure you check that out. Hopefully we'll get a theatrical run, because Funimation sometimes gets that going.
Wouldn't you say that they should probably read the manga first, since the movie's missing most of the written story?
You could do the anime.
Yeah.
You can watch the anime without it. Some of it becomes kind of confusing, but if you're just watching the story about these two guys in a biker gang who suddenly come at odds with each other, and then you can just kind of toss out the whole backstory about who Akira is and everything else, and just make it just about those two guys, Tetsuo and Kaneda.
Maybe they should have called the movie Tetsuo and Kaneda.
Alright, so the idea is the manga went from 1982 to 1990, and the movie is just like a solo thing that came in 1988. And there's like 6 big giant books for the whole Akira manga that you can get real cheap. But like most of what the movie references as far as the manga goes in the first volume, the ending is different, a lot of things change as far as story goes, so it's kind of its own thing, which is fine. It's high quality animation. It's also one of the first animes to actually do a process that's done in American animation where they record the dialogue first and then draw the actual animation of the characters, particularly the mouth movements, to match how the actors speak, which you see a lot of Disney animation, but you don't really see in anime, but Akira is one of those rare exceptions where that happens. I wish this was a process that was done more often, but it is what it is. So anyways, we'll actually show a clip and then we'll talk about some more.
Manga was done by a guy named Tetsuhiro Otomo as well. He's kind of one of those godfathers of manga at this point. He generally works with like a bunch of other people on the projects, but he has a lot of really good theming that he does in all of his stories. Whether it's an Akira with the human rebelling and things like commanding, or something like Roman Disease, puts it on its head and talks about taking care of senior citizens, taking care of the elderly. So it's really good.
The other thing about the music for Akira is that the soundtrack is done primarily with vocals and percussions. So there's a lot of chanting and stuff like that going on. They pretty much have a full range orchestra, and if you get the right version of Akira, you can see those on extras of how they perform with such power. They have this full-on soundtrack, and like every song has that going that goes on Akira. So that's definitely one of the high aspects of it. But like more importantly, the idea is World War III already hit. World War III already happened. Japan was devastated again, but not by a foreign country. They had this like being known as Akira that set off a pretty huge explosion that destroyed all of Tokyo. So many, many years later, Neo-Tokyo was built, and that's where everyone lives now. And there's several different things going on. One, the government's trying to research the whole Akira phenomenon and doing experiments on various people in Japan that can develop psychosomatic abilities or telekinetic abilities, right? And they do all these crazy experiments, feed them drugs, medicine, whatever it is to help them develop their powers so they can find out what to do with Akira, but also secretly they want to use them as weapons. Also going on in old Tokyo, they're trying to get it as a spot for the Olympic Games for that year. But ironically, oddly enough, the Akira project's being stored under that facility, so it ends up being a big showdown at the end of the movie is the whole stadium that's being built in old Tokyo to get that funding. And then you got other things going on, like the government doesn't have enough money, and in the foreground you got these kids who are part of a biker gang, and by chance, one of them gets into a crazy accident, the government takes this kid away, and then they start experimenting on him. And as over the course of the movie, this kid pretty much becomes blind with power because he becomes so strong and fearsome that it becomes an obstacle, not only an obstacle for the government and what their plans are, but pretty much a whole threat to the world. So like, his buddies that grew up with him pretty much have to stop this guy from taking things way too far before, like a Fourth World War, another apocalypse actually happens. So you see this relationship between these two kids, Kaneda, who's the leader of the biker gang, and Tetsuo, who's a kid with the accident, who becomes so powerful, and he has this inferiority complex that he's developed from being Kaneda's, like, second in command or whatever. Like, Kaneda's always sticking up for him when they grow up. So when Tetsuo develops these powers, he starts feeling like, I don't need you, and he starts feeling like resentful towards Kaneda for always being the guy that stuck up for him. So you see that kind of relationship start to harshen, but Kaneda feels that he has to be the one responsible for making sure that Tetsuo doesn't ruin everything. So you see this crazy showdown at the end of the movie that, like, pretty much, it's left to interpretation. Some people are like, what the hell did I just watch? Because the ending is that open-ended. But it's pretty much up to interpretation. But if you want to find out what really happened, well, the story is different in the manga anyways, but the manga has a much more definitive ending of what happens. So that brings us to our last one. Pretty much to emphasize the excess of anime in the 80s, we bring in Gunbuster. So you want to take this, Shane?
Yeah, Gunbuster takes place in the future, as most anime do. Earth is at war with an unknown force in space, in deep space. And the only way to fight them is by using faster-than-light technology in order to reach these places where these aliens are pouring through, and we have to fight them. The main character is a girl whose father was previously killed or went missing in action against this alien invading force. And now she has taken on the mantle of becoming a pilot of a robot to go out and try to fight these aliens. She doesn't realize it, but she's also being kind of groomed to become the pilot of the titular character Gunbuster, the giant robot. It's a really good anime. It invented a lot of the classic Gainax tropes, the child with a troubled history. You have the whole idea of the Gainax jiggle. Kind of came about with this, but this also kind of established Hideaki Anno as a directing force. This is his first directorial thing. He'd go on to do Nadia afterwards and Evangelion, but this is probably his best work he's done. It's only 6 episodes. Bandai Visual, again, I think released it a few years back on DVD. I don't know who has rights to it right now, but it's an incredible show, and it probably has one of the best interpretations of faster-than-light travel I've ever seen in anything ever. As the pilots are in these machines going faster than light, they actually have a little counter on their machine that lets them know how many days, months, or years are passing as they are sitting in their machines, because, as Einstein said, if you go faster than light, time around is going to bend. Might only be a couple days for you, might be 3,000 years here on Earth. So there's that whole thing built into the conflict, as they know they're out there fighting for Earth, but they don't even know if Earth is there anymore. So, is this the...
Yeah, I suppose. Watch this, we've been on time. So you're going to see the most over-the-top animation of this panel right here.
Yeah, this is a ridiculous
Stuff like this is why Ghana has garnered such a really good reputation throughout the 90s and early 2000s.
And here's right there, her lover is actually back on Earth dying of cancer. And he only has 6 months left to live from the point of time that she left. So her traveling in that machine is cutting his days down, and she actually watches his days click off the charts. So she has to overcome that and help her co-pilot, the actual main character, to form Gunbuster and fight the alien forces.
You think about the Gunbuster event driven by girls, it's not either A or B.
Who the hell do you think we are?
The sunglasses.
The ending to the show is also really good. The final episode's actually done completely in black and white. There's some controversy as to why that happened. I like to think it was Hideaki Anno saying, I want to do something really artistic here. A lot of people think it's because Gainax ran out of money for paint, like colored paint. That's why the last episode was black and white. That's kind of awesome, actually. Don't know the story, but that's the beginnings of like kind of the whole Gainax was running out of money during the production.
I've heard that during the making of this show, the budget ran out due to the Gainax jiggle. Like, most of the money went into animating jiggling breasts.
I don't know if that's true or not, but there is definitely a huge myth behind that's why episode 6 is black and white, is because they ran out of money.
Alright, so we're about out of time. That was pretty much our collection of awesome 80s animation checked out. We have business cards up here if you guys want to stay connected. If you ever come in Orlando, we're there. You can find us on the internet all over the place. Thank you very much. We got 2 more panels tomorrow. All we're going to do the best of 2012 tomorrow at noon. The panel 4 right here. And then we'll do a panel later in the afternoon called Anime Directors You Should Know About. Besides Hayao Miyazaki. That'll be in the main event grand ballroom. So if you come to those, that'll be awesome. Thank you guys very much for sticking with us, checking us out. And I hope you guys check out some of the really good things that we showcased today.